Good morning, Bob. Good morning, Gloria.
Good morning. Oh, I'm on. I can't. It's crazy.
Hi, Bob.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello, Kristen.
moisturizers and the conditioners. Be sure to look for the creosote free, as it is a possible carcinogen.
What is that?
It has a particular smell. It smells much like smoky pine.
Good morning, Kathleen. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing well, thank you.
Hey, Carrie, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Oh,
Great.
okay. I guess that's them. Thank you. So then, okay.
We are going to wait a few more minutes. We are expecting 1,000 participants this morning. We need to give them time to log on. It's going up quickly, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay. Good morning. Everybody's muted.
Good morning.
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 We're just waiting another minute to allow more people to sign in. We ask that you keep yourself muted. Although good mornings are awfully nice.
Good morning.
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 I'm back so I can say good morning.
Good morning and hi, Johanna.
Morning, all.
Hey, Mary Beth. Is that you I heard?
Yes.
Good morning, everyone.
I love the music.
Something to relax us this morning. All right, I'm going to ask us all to mute ourselves again, except for our speakers. Welcome and to a Zoom presentation of the New York State School Counselor Association. Thank you for joining us. I'm Gloria Jean. I'm the chair of NYSSCA's Professional Development Committee. This program is being recorded and it will be available on NYSSCA's YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get announcements of when new videos are posted. Please stay muted unless we are asking for comments. At that point, there's a raise hand function and we will call on people to speak. We're expecting 1,000 participants, so this could be quite interesting. We want to get as many comments in as possible, but please bear with us as we try to be systematic and as fair as we can. We're also taking comments through the chat function. You can do that throughout. The chat will be saved. We will be monitoring and we'll add your comments to the discussion as, again, as much as we are able to. We will have 2 polls during this program, one in Zoom and another one that will be through your cell phone. So you might want to keep your cell phone handy. We'll provide instructions when we get to that. That's near the end. So I'd like to introduce our facilitator and host, Kristen Shearer, who is the NYSSCA Vice President for Directors and Supervisors. Kristen.
Thank you, Gloria, and welcome everyone. We're so excited to offer this opportunity to dialogue with the New York State Education Department. Recently, the Office of Student Support Services sent out a memo supporting students and families disconnected from school. So we are just so honored that Kathleen D. Cataldo, the Assistant Commissioner of the Office of Student Support Services, and Carrie Manchester, the Associate in Educational Planning and Evaluation and social emotional learning, and those big community schools are here to dialogue with us. Kathleen, I know they don't want to hear from me, they want to hear from you. So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today.
Thanks, Kristen, and good morning, everyone. I think we're going to start with the poll, and Carrie is going to run that for us. Carrie?
Bob, can you launch the poll?
Oh, hang on just a sec. Not yet.
Not yet.
All right. So we're going to talk a lot about taking care of students and families today, but we know that the foundation for all of that is taking good care of ourselves. So we want to start by framing the morning with taking a moment to check in with ourselves and to just pause and be and get back into our bodies, out of our heads and into our bodies a little bit. So I would ask, if you are sitting at home, that you find a comfortable seat where you can ground into your cushion or floor or chair or bed or wherever you are. Sit up tall.
Gloria G.
Set your gaze just a few feet in front of you. Soft gaze, you're not focused on anything. And start to bring your attention inward. Notice your breath. Notice the quality of your breath. It's deep or shallow, fast or slow. And take a moment to scan your body from the top of your head to the tip of your toes. Notice any sensations you feel, any emotions manifesting in your body. Maybe you feel tingling from the joy of the sunshine coming through your window. Maybe you're feeling anxious about the overwhelming tasks that we have ahead of us. And you're feeling tension in your chest or your shoulders. Notice those emotions, sensations. And if you can, put a name to those emotions. Acknowledge where you are this morning. Without judgment, just noticing. And then I'll ask you to come into this poll and just check in with us, check in with each other. See where we all are, get a sense of where as a community we fall this morning.
Gloria Jean, I think we need to launch the poll now.
Okay, I can do it.
Thank you.
I did it.
And we'll give just a moment or two for responses to come in and see where we are.
We're halfway there.
30 seconds.
All right. A few more seconds. Okay. All right, we have 80% almost. I think we may need to share the results.
Yeah,
Not
I
everybody likes
we'll
to.
go ahead with that.
Yes.
All right, and let's. This is where I lose it. Bob, how do I share the results? Well, first I have to end the polling. Okay.
There you go. Share results.
New share.
No,
Oh,
the
wait.
share results at the bottom.
Okay. I went and did the wrong thing. Share results.
There you go.
There we go.
There we go. So it looks like most of us are doing okay. Maybe not fantastic, but okay. And a fair number of us are struggling a little bit with this, and that's expected and something we can all keep in mind as we go through our session this morning and as we go through our work, that as much as we're spending time taking care of our young people, our colleagues are also facing their own struggles in all of this. So thank you all for your honesty and your openness in that. And I will turn you over to Kathleen to start.
Thanks very much. And next slide, Gloria.
Yes.
And thanks everyone for participating in the poll. I know for me, I wanted someplace in between this is hard, I'm coping well, and struggling but trouble focusing. I'm finding I'm focusing okay, but I think I don't know that I'm coping well. I think all of this is difficult. And I, appreciate Carrie and appreciate how much she always reminds us in our office about remembering self-care, because it is so important all the time and especially now. So we wanted to begin with this slide and with this greeting, from a traditional greeting for the Maasai warriors in Africa. And the traditional response is, all the children are well. So my understanding of what that greeting of how are the children and all the children are well is that that means that all is well in society because the children are taken care of. I always love this greeting. And I think even now it sends a more important message to all of us to keep in mind. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how are all the children. So my office, Student Support Services, oversees school climate and safety, school health and mental health, school counseling and social emotional learning, alternative education, and many more things, but that's enough for right now. And throughout this time in responding to the pandemic, we've really endeavored to keep the social emotional needs of our students front and center in our guidance. Earlier this week, as Kristen said, we released new guidance regarding engaging those students and families who've not been participating in the continuity of learning opportunities or the free meals being provided by schools and the other methods your districts have been employing to reach out to them. Next slide. So we also wanted from the outset to recognize and applaud your efforts to support students during this unprecedented time of crisis and disruption. And I don't know about you, but it seems like it's forever already. But thank you for your ongoing efforts to ensure that New York students and their families remain engaged in the learning process. This is a picture of the State Education Department. In the Capital Region, there's something called the hashtag 518 Rainbow Hunt. And I don't know if it's going on in other areas of the state, but it is what people are doing are posting rainbows in all kinds of creative ways all over the fronts of their houses and buildings. And SED is participating by lighting up the building every night in ever-changing rainbow colors. It's really pretty if you're around to drive by. I know I've really enjoyed, as I've walked my dog, driven around the Capital Region, seeing all the creative ways that people are doing it. Last night when I was walking the dog, my neighbor actually painted her front steps in rainbow colors. So it's a nice way to show hope and community. You'll see a few more rainbows throughout our presentation. So most of what we're going to talk about today, you already know and are probably already doing, but we thought it was really critical for SED to reaffirm the importance of continuing the work to engage our students and families. Next slide, please. So we all know that continuity of learning is critical. Our children's young minds must remain active and engaged during this extended time away from their classrooms. And distance learning sure isn't the same as classroom learning. And I have to say, I much prefer a room full of people that I can look around and see whether you're paying attention on your phone, snoring, rolling your eyes. It's hard to talk to your computer. I can't imagine what it is for teachers and school personnel trying to engage with students every day. But we do know that all the continuity of learning does support the kind of consistent and active thinking that children need, and it will decrease learning loss overall, and making the transition back to school for students when it's finally safe to do so better. And I think some of the bright spots we're hearing about is that for some children, they're loving this. So maybe it's kids who had anxiety about going to school. Maybe it's kids who can set their own schedule now and don't have to get up at the crack of dawn to be at school by 7:30 in the morning, are really doing much better with this type of learning, and that's great. But in addition, schools and districts have also been going above and beyond to provide continued critical access to school meals for children. And again, seeing the creativity for pickup or drive-up sites for grab-and-go meals. We've heard of school buses doing their usual school bus routes and delivering meals, and that sometimes school counselors are on the bus with those meals and checking in with students. In addition, we've heard about how some districts have been working with their community partners to supplement the school meals with bags of groceries and sometimes age-appropriate books. And all of these are great ways to reach out. Next slide, please. But we also know that despite these many creative efforts, we have not been able to successfully connect with all our families. There are students and families throughout the state who haven't accessed those distance learning materials or free meals and haven't responded to many efforts for schools to communicate with them. And knowing the many thoughtful and innovative efforts districts have made and the importance of that connection for both social, emotional, and educational stability. We also know that the children who haven't connected are vulnerable in many ways. You know, we've heard that the numbers of disconnected children really varies greatly from district to district. We've heard reports that some schools it's a couple children, and from other schools that it's 20% of their enrollment are just not engaged at all. And that's really concerning. Next slide. We also know there's many reasons that families have not accessed services. It could be no internet or available devices. It could be that parents are overwhelmed and cannot or don't know how to help their children with the learning opportunities provided. It could be that the parents must work and that the older students are caring for their younger siblings. It could be families are sheltering in locations other than their known addresses and consequently not receiving district or school communications. And we have to really think about what's going on right now in our children's lives. Some areas of our state have been so hard hit by COVID-19. Children have lost a parent, a beloved grandparent, a teacher. There's job loss everywhere. And what might have been a stable household before the pandemic, maybe that household may be experiencing increasing stressors. And all of us are stuck at home day after day for months now. Next slide, please. And in our guidance, we really talk about how simple solutions are often the best one. You all know that a phone call is the easiest and sometimes most direct way to offer resources and to assess student needs. But when that doesn't help, you know, texting is an alternative. Many people will respond to a text much more than they will pick up a phone if they're not sure whose number it is that's calling. Some districts have been providing regularly scheduled virtual office hours, and that can be particularly effective for parents who are looking for assistance in helping their students to access the distance learning. And of course, we have to emphasize that all of those interactions have to take place in a language that students and their families understand to really be effective. If you're looking for access to interpretation services, our department's regional bilingual resource networks, or the RBIRNs, can direct you to appropriate translation and interpretation resources. We are also able to find online a nonprofit organization called Talking Points, and they are temporarily offering free access to translation resources for texting during the crisis. And we hope that districts are using their school counselors to engage with students and families. Social workers, nurses, and psychologists, as well as our school counselors, have the skills and knowledge and training to assist in these outreach efforts. In our guidance, we talk about how when traditional methods fail, schools should consider connecting through the emergency contacts listed in your school records to reach out to the family and express the concern and hopefully emphasize the importance of the distance learning opportunities. Also, local community centers, faith-based organizations, community-based organizations that work with immigrant communities, and homeless shelters may also be able to assist you in connecting with and supporting the families who depend on their services. The other thing we wanted to point out is that some students are experiencing increased isolation now and may require additional attention, maybe even more than once a day. So Regent Cashin, we had our Regents meeting earlier this month, and Regent Cashin was very concerned about children who are all alone, maybe in an apartment, parents are working, and there's just no one there but them. And she wanted us to emphasize how important it is that those children, those students be touched as much as possible to provide, some community and support to them. We've also heard of some, really innovative ways that districts are trying to reach out to students. One district talked about how for their older students in middle school and high school, when only a couple of the students in a class were participating, that they were encouraged to reach out to their friends and tell them that, oh, hey, this isn't so bad, you should try it. And that seemed to increase participation. At State Ed, we're actually collecting stories of the many innovative ways that schools are keeping in touch and sharing them on our Continuity of Learning website. We really hope that you'll think about sharing your stories too. We want to celebrate all that schools are doing to work with their students during this time. And while there are many reasons a student and family may not be engaged in distance learning or have not responded to your communications that don't indicate that a student may be at risk, we do know that extended periods of isolation, such as we're experiencing right now, can lead to increases in domestic violence and child abuse. So it's really important that we continue to attempt to engage and support families. Schools and school personnel are well positioned to connect families with crucial community services and resources that will help to provide them with the support they need and continue to ensure their children's well-being. Schools also must take appropriate action when concerns about the well-being of students or their family become apparent. At SED, we actually reached out to the State Office of Children and Family Services, which oversees the local social services districts, when we first started hearing the concerns about these disconnected students. We were surprised to hear from OCFS that the reports of child abuse to the hotline are way, way down. The child protective system is built on the concept of eyes outside the family being aware of what's going on with children. And that system's just not in place right now, right? So school for many children was a safe place. And now they aren't going there anymore, and they are home, and they are home without other people who were part of their support system checking up on them. So, we urge you, when there are children that you have tried to communicate with, and families that you've tried to connect with, to reach out to your local departments of social services with any questions or concerns related to child welfare. Social services districts have many preventive services that they might be able to employ that can help families. We know that hunger and need is growing. The social services districts can help connect families to SNAP and to some of the other benefits that are available. We've worked with OCFS also. I think all schools and social services districts were required to create foster care points of contact. And OCFS has alerted all the social services district points of contact that school districts are going to be contacting them with questions about students in an effort to not engage the child protective system unless we really need to. But at the same time, hopefully, get the community services that are available connected to those families. And then consistent with our guidance on educational neglect, our statewide central register of child abuse and neglect, the hotline, we really are continuing to say that should be used as a last resort when you've done everything you can and you don't know what's going on and have heard nothing from children, that you reach out to the hotline. These are really, it's a fine line. It's a hard balance to decide when these things, when to make that call. But bottom line, our goal was just to emphasize how critically important all that you are doing to reach out to these children and families is, and to encourage you to continue to take the steps that you are taking, because it is so important for these young people. So now I'm going to turn it over to Carrie to talk a little bit about some of the resources that we are featuring in our guidance as well.
Great. I am dropping a link in the text box for you right now to the memo that this webinar is based on. It has links to all of the resources that, well, most of the resources that we talked about today. I'm going to give you a couple other things too. Can we move to the next slide, please? And so I wanted to start with our community schools technical assistance centers. We have 3 centers across the state. You do not need to have technically identified as a community school to use their services. You do not need to receive specific community school funding to use their services. The 3 regions are Central and Western New York, and that technical assistance center is located at Binghamton University. The eastern part of the state, which extends from the North Country all the way to the Hamptons, is located at Rockland 21st Century Collaborative for Children and Youth. And then there is a 3rd technical assistance center that serves New York City, and that's located at Fordham University. And if you're not sure which region you fall into, because we had to draw some county lines to figure out who would serve who, I'm going to drop another link directly to the map on the Community Schools Technical Assistance Center's homepage that helps you find your center. And these 3 centers have been doing amazing work since school closures to try to rethink how they serve schools and districts and how they can best support students in this completely changed environment. And how this is set up is you have a regional center you can reach out to, but all 3 of those centers are sharing resources around webinars and virtual events, and you can connect with the expertise of all 3 in that way. So our Western Center, Western and Central Center in particular, has been very strong around multi-tiered systems of support, and is doing some work over the next few weeks on mindfulness and social emotional learning. Our Eastern Regional Center is particularly strong in family engagement. They've done some fantastic sessions lately. And the New York City Center has been very focused in thinking about trauma and how this is impacting students. So I would recommend a few things. I'm going to send you a direct link to sign up for their newsletter so you can get notifications of any of their upcoming webinars. And there's there's one event that I want to highlight specifically coming up. Allie Hearn from the Midwest PBIS Center is going to do 3 sessions over the month of May to talk about PBIS and multi-tiered systems of support. And that was, we intended for her to be here in state doing in-person things, and she's sort of switched gears for us, but that's an amazing opportunity coming up. And so I really can't recommend enough connecting with them. Beth Witchlink, I can't recommend enough connecting with the Community Schools Technical Assistance Centers. We also have a page on our Continuity of Learning page at State Ed that focuses on resources for social emotional learning. It's a very broad, okay, I'll send the newsletter one again. It's a very broad set of resources. Some of them are specific to frontline educators, some of them are more about district planning, and some of them are things that you could potentially share with families, so they're categorized on there. There's resources around how to talk to young people around their stress and trauma. There are resources around how to incorporate SEL in an online environment. And there are things about self-care and thinking about yourselves in that first responder role and how you can better take care of yourself and not sort of lose yourself in the compassion fatigue that's so hard to say, so hard to avoid right now. All right, I'm going to pull up that newsletter link and get that sent out again first. And so all of the resources, all of these links that I'm sending you, they're just more specific links that are in the memo. So if you go into the memo, you'll find those there and can connect. I resend the newsletter one. Computer will agree with me.
And we can absolutely put all of these links on our NYSSCA webpage, and Bob will talk about that at the end of the webinar. But thank you so much.
Okay. And then there's a few other things on that resource link list. So SCD has been collaborating with the Council on Children and Families and a number of other agencies to develop parenting resources that can be shared with families. Again, what I'm putting in chat is just texting you direct links so you can grab it right now rather than having to go through the memo. And those are really about how do you stay safe, how do you stay healthy, how do you engage children at home, and how do you parent in the midst of a pandemic to the best that any of us can figure that out. Our New York State Center for School Health is offering resources around, again, staying safe and healthy, and for school health professionals, for educators. There's mental health resources on their site, and things on how to support families. And then finally, I know I saw in the comments, someone was asking about specifically that our students who are experiencing homelessness or students who are in temporary housing, how can we better support them? So the New York State Technical, oh, I always get this one wrong, NYS Teaches, they have a COVID-19 page too that's specifically around how do we help our students that find themselves without a regular place to shelter right now. So before we sort of start to close, I want to do one more moment of grounding. And for this, oh, go ahead.
I thought we were going to do questions and answers and save that for right at the very end.
If you would prefer, we can do it that way, sure.
Yeah, I think so, to the extent that there are questions. Yes, Kristen, does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I know that there were a bunch in the chat right now. There are some barriers to connecting with students around our school's individual policies. You know, we want to make sure that we're protecting student identity, and you know, some of our schools are not allowing us to use Zoom, are not allowing us to use pieces of Google. So what would be, you know, your suggestion around that? I mean,
so I know that our New York State Attorney General and our counsel's office were both working with Zoom to clear up the issues around security of data. And I know there's still some issues, but I believe that they have solved a lot of the problems. So to the extent that your districts are concerned about that, I would go back and check with Zoom, because obviously they want people to use their platform and they're doing everything they can to deal with the concerns that schools have. You know, I would reinforce with your district administrators just how important it is to see a face. It's hard enough as it is, you know, and at least, you know, seeing someone respond to you, seeing a familiar face from your school is really going to make a big difference. You know, one of the things that I know some schools have been doing in suburban areas is, you know, the school parades. But what I think is most touching about that is, you know, the kids that are coming to their front step and crying because they're just so thrilled to see people from their schools that they love, that they've missed. So, you know, I would push back as much as possible on the not being able to use those platforms. And I know, you know, our guidance originally had a little bit in there about making personal visits to homes and talking about how to do that safely and maintaining social distance and going, with a couple people, not just one person on their own. And we took it out, recognizing that districts have different policies and for various reasons, and that's understandable. So I, again, I think this has all been so sudden, so disruptive. We're all figuring it out on the fly, and that's difficult. But I think that you as school counselors, are the right people to really talk to your school administrators about, we need to try and connect in every way we can with these young people. And if they're not, they're not responding, having the ability to do a Zoom meeting or some other platform where they can see your face might be really much more effective.
You can raise your hand virtually and we'll call on you when we see it.
Sure. I know that Kathleen, that there are a lot of schools that are using their SROs to go out and do wellness checks to help when we can't connect with families. And in some of those cases, we're finding that the family's no longer there, that they had to move in with someone else.
Right.
We talk about trying to make those connections and trying to have kids join office hours and their classrooms, and they're not even in the place that we thought that they were in. So there's
Right.
a lot of disconnect that way.
And I think in that's where, reaching out to those emergency contacts, they might have moved, but I bet you grandma knows where they are and how to get a hold of them. So that, that's why it's not something you think of in these situations, but it really might be a way to just say, hey, we're looking for you. It's real important for your children to be part of our continuity of learning. And, we're here to provide you any services we can in this difficult time.
There were several questions in the chat around budget and the importance, and Carrie, maybe you can chime into this as well. When we're thinking about mental health and we're thinking about social emotional learning of our students who are really struggling right now, and our budgets all looking flat or in the deficit, and us needing school counselors and all of our PPS staff, our psychologists, our social workers, right now more than ever. And there's fear that there could be some cuts in those areas. It's a little alarming right now. Do you have any thought about budget at all? You think the governor's gonna acknowledge, the fact that there's just such an increased need for student supports right now? It's not a luxury anymore, it's a necessity.
Well, we certainly know that at state ed. It was on a Zoom meeting with our interim commissioner yesterday, and she started the meeting by talking about her concern for all of our children with this disruption, with this, it'll be 6 months by the time they get back to school. What is that going to mean? Everybody's getting sick of doing the online learning on it, and understandably, teachers, all of us are. This is hard, and I can't imagine for those of you who are, constantly trying to engage and keep the kids engaged, come up with something new and something different to stimulate their thinking. I can't imagine how hard that is. So yeah, we're already looking at budget cuts at state ed. There's been a requirement of 10% cuts so far, across all state agencies. And our understanding is that May 15th is when the next spending plan is going to be delivered to the legislature. So that's tomorrow for those of you who are keeping track. And then we're going to find out, what all has been cut further. So yeah, there's nothing good in the in the budget forecast right now. You know, I'd encourage you all to talk to Congress because that's our best hope at this point. But, you know, as I said from the outset, at SED, we really are trying to reinforce with everyone that our children's mental health and social emotional learning has to be key. We're talking about, you know, school reopening. The first thing we do can't be assessing how much learning loss has been, right? The first thing we have to do is give everybody time to process, to reestablish those relationships that have, you know, been so attenuated over 6 months, to reestablish community, and to give everybody time to process what they've been through, because those kids aren't going to be ready to learn. They're not, and they're going to need that time with all of you to rebuild their relationships and to feel safe. So, you know, that's our message at SED, and certainly our message is, you know, the people you need are your school counselors, your social workers, everyone who is going to be supporting these children and supporting your staff. And that's the other part that I can't neglect to say, is that it's not just the kids that are going to need this time. All of us need this time too, right? And staff are going to have to process all they've been through, and with their children. I mean, I'll just share one story. I have a nephew who teaches 3rd grade, and he was talking about how the big project in his 3rd grade class is they do a virtual Ellis Island, and the kids had spent a month just, you know, they had passports and backstories, and then the culmination of the project was that parents actually come in and they're the immigration officials, and they go through the Ellis Island, and that was the day after schools closed. And he said the other big thing for 3rd grade was they have a school play. And he said the only thing his kids ask him about when they go online is, what about Ellis Island and what about our school play? So I think all of us are concerned about our seniors, and they're missing all their rites of passage. But I think it's just as important for our children. You know, this was so abrupt. The doors closed and they were home. We're going to need to really help them process that. Maybe, you know, have some opportunities, say goodbye to their class from last year before they're ready to move forward.
Got it. So there were a couple quick questions. Carrie, do you know if the resources are available in other languages? Are you muted?
Good. Yeah, okay. We do not have those resources available in Spanish or other languages right now. I don't know if we have any ability to
do that.
See
Okay.
a couple hands up too, Kristen.
Yes, and there was just one other question in there about kind of reentry, right? And what role your office will play in helping schools to design reentry plans through social emotional learning. That was a big part of some questions that we had got previously.
Yeah, well, we're talking about that a lot, and Carrie is our main architect. Ask her to answer that question.
Sure. So we are anticipating any day now that the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning will be releasing a brief, and then we anticipate by mid-June that they will have released a toolkit focused on that. How do we incorporate SEL coming back in, given what our limited resources are going to be, given the incredibly high student need that we anticipate seeing? How do we support our adults? How do we make sure that we're building capacity there to be able to support those students? And we're talking about putting together some other resources to go along with that. We're thinking about what can we share that are free and relatively easy to implement, because we understand there's not going to be additional budget resources to take this on. We're working on it. We are kind of holding out on that CASEL document because we anticipate it being central in our work.
Bob, there are some people with hands up, so do you want to call on them?
Yep, I gotta find them.
Joe had
Only 600 people
up.
on the page. Joe Diesel?
Good morning.
Good
Has
morning,
there
Joe.
been any discussions about youth protection guidelines and confidentiality with video conferencing?
So there have been a lot of conversations about that. And I know our office of, oh, now I can't remember what the office is called, but anyway, there have been as I said, there was the initial concern about the Zoom platform. But my understanding is we've worked through those issues and it's now available. As far as, child to child and school personnel participating in it, we don't see any issues around that.
I think I mean if a student doesn't have their video active, you have no clue who's on the other end of the video, whether it's actually a student or anyone else participating, like guidelines, I guess, about that, or?
I don't think we've been asked that particular question, and I'll take it back.
There are professional guidelines for that you can find through the American School Counselor Association.
Thank you, Gloria Jean.
Yeah.
I see Eric Katz.
Good morning, and thank you, everyone. It's been tremendously helpful, and thank you, NYSSCA, for everything you've been doing during this time. I'm wondering when the state is going to share what September is going to look like in terms of the supports. I know it's a tough and complex question, but is it going to be state guidelines on physical reentry and social distancing? Or will locals have a lot of discretion? And I'll listen to your answer. Thank you so much.
So yes, our chancellor of the Board of Regents is convening a task force, and my understanding is that task force will be meeting virtually regionally to hear from people about what they want from the state as far as guidance. And in our office, as I said, we have school health and as well as school safety. And my staff have been, combing the internet and the CDC and trying to pull together as many resources as possible. Everyone is going to want to know how to, I keep laughing, not laughing, but how are you going to keep the kindergartners from hugging each other, especially for the first graders? My daughter is a mental health counselor, and she's like, squirt bottle's about the only thing I think will work. That's what we use with the cat. So that those are things that I don't know even how to begin to contemplate how you're going to get kids who don't understand that they can't be right next to their friends. So those are the harder questions, but there is guidance coming out of the CDC eventually, including, well, anyway. And I know that is what's going to be coming from SED. I don't know when. I know that the chancellor takes community input very, very seriously, and that's what she wants to ensure by having these regional task force virtual meetings, is to make sure that we're thinking, one size does not fit all. It's going to be different for New York City than it is going to be for some of the small rural upstate communities. These are very hard questions. How do you do social distancing in a classroom where you have 30 kids? I mean, schools don't have the space to spread those down to
recess
classrooms.
When we think about recess and lunch and playgrounds and yeah. Mary, you had a question.
There are a lot of resources being shared that sound wonderful, and we appreciate your guidance on this. I just wondered if there are any virtual lessons that would be uniform that could be created over the summer that could be used by districts. It seems like everybody is going to need to be creating our own. And I just wondered if there might be some consistency around what we might project to students if we remain at a distance or at a hybrid version of return to school and distance learning.
So as far as academic lessons, I know that SED is pursuing the federal grant or hopes to pursue the federal grant to create exactly those things, but that's not going to be available for September. The Continuity of Learning website, our Office of Technology Services has been combing the internet for every kind of resource there is. So there are already a lot of resources that are available there, and we'll continue to do that work.
Okay, the other question I had was about Aaron's Law that is supposed to be in effect in September, and if there would be an extension of that.
We have not heard of an extension. We are working with the Office of Children and Family Services and the Department of Health to come up with a resource page or a group of resources around child abuse and neglect and around the trafficking of children for school districts to use. And that's part of the work that we're doing right now.
Thank you so much.
Bob,
There's
questions?
I don't see any more. I don't see any more hands right now.
Okay.
If anybody can't figure out how to do the hand thing, unmute yourself and just ask. There's only 500 of you on.
Chris, I don't know if you'd like to do a couple of quick polls just to get some data.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Did you want to do that, Kristen?
The phone
Sure.
thing?
Sure.
There were a couple of items that were coming through the chats earlier, and I was able to, I think I have to share, and I was able to do up a quick poll, so it might be helpful to see. So home visits is a question that comes up quite a bit. If you could just let us know, and these are anonymous, so we don't, we're not able to go back and track, who said what, but are you doing home visits? Yes, you have done them. No, you've not done them, or others are doing them, such as SROs. So we won't spend a lot of time on this. And then I have another one on personal phone use versus some other modes.
And Gloria Jean Carey did have a closing that she wanted to do.
Oh, yes. Yes, we have. We'll make sure we get that in. There's a real richness in the comments that have been flowing in the chat box, and we just wanted everyone to know that we do save that, and we will be able to share the entire chat with the State Education Department. So, because I think there's a lot of good examples in there, and as well as concerns that were raised, and I think it's a way for us to get our voice to you. So we will make sure we provide that directly to you. So it looks as though, just as a quick look, I'm going to end the polling in 10 seconds. So as soon as we hit 75% and it slows down. And oh, they're still coming in, so I don't want to cut anybody off, because this is helpful. These are questions that come up, and then we wonder just what is the status of it. Okay, I'm going to close polling now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the results are more than half of us have not, but others are doing that.
Kathleen, there was some desires for continued webinars over the summer to get us ready. So maybe we can partner again in that, or maybe your office can consider doing some of those.
Yeah.
Lori, can we go ahead and let?
Yes. Yes. So enough with the polls. I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint. And Carrie, let you.
All right, so before we sign off, for those of you who can stay for an extra 2 or 3 minutes, just wanted to pause, come back to ourselves and take a moment to think about the reasons behind all this work. So you can again come into stillness and bring to mind a recent success that you had in connecting with a student or a family. Think about the details of that experience, how it made you feel, the impact on that family. And think about one word you would use to describe that experience. We can go ahead and open.
Okay, hold on to that word. And this is where you need your phone. Send a text message to 37607 and include in the message Gloria Jean 006. That will put you into the poll. And then you can type in your one word, and we're going to build a word cloud. Give everyone a moment to.
Can you repeat that?
Yes, so you send a text message to 37607. And the message you send is Gloria Jean 006. That then enters you into the poll. You then can type in your, or send the message of your one word response.
Thank you.
Okay, you'll also find it on the top of this slide. So we can watch the word cloud develop as we enter.
I love these.
Yeah, this is great. This just seemed like a lovely way to close, just thinking about our purpose behind all of this work, even when it is hard and it feels like it's hard to figure out what the next step is.
Right. Overjoyed that we finally got in touch with a family. You know, some of these are so wonderful.
Well, thank you all so much for taking time out this morning to spend some time with us. And I loved watching the chat comment. The community there was lovely to see, and the resources shared back and forth, and ideas and support.
And I know that we'll be, you know, certainly tapping into you again for some more of these. We're really gonna want to know a plan to re-enter school and what that's going to look like and when it can happen. And we appreciate all of the work that you guys are doing at State Ed on our behalf. So Kathleen, thank you so much. Carrie, thank you so much.
Well, hold on a sec. We just want to finish. I'm trying to advance the slide and I can't get out of here.
And I'll just say, while Gloria Jean is doing that, and please, you know, let us know what you need. That's important to us.
Here we go.
And so, you know, our contact information, well, you can send something to student supports or my email also. You know, we're really, we want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear what you need. And then that helps us advocate for what you need as well. So thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. It's really been wonderful.
Just wanted to let you know some of the other things that are in the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint will be on the NYSSCA website. And we did actually pull out the links to some of those resources, all of the resources in the memo, and have them on a slide just for easy access, as well as a link to the memo. There's also some ASCA webinars that could be useful about strengthening school family partnerships, cultural toolbox, homeless youth, that we thought would be relevant and helpful. As always, we'd like to point people to the State Ed coronavirus webpage, NYSSCA's coronavirus webpage, and ASCA also. This is where you can find some of the resources we've talked about in this and in others. And as always, if you appreciated this program and you're not yet a NYSSCA member, please consider joining to support your professional association by going to our website and clicking on the membership tab. Kristen, I'll let you finish out.
I just wanted to thank you again. I know that you guys are very busy at State Ed, and we appreciate you taking the time to talk with our school counselors today. So again, thank you so much. And we hope that you're well and continue to be well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
so much.
Bye-bye.
This was extremely informative. Thank you. Stay safe.
Bye. You too.
Have a good day, you guys.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so how do I get out of this?
Thank you very much, everybody.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
See you all next time.
Hope so.
Bye-bye.
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 Janelle, beauty you got in your hand.